Mean Girls. Even for those who haven't seen the movie, they surely have heard some of its iconic quotes such as, "That is so fetch," or "On Wednesdays we wear pink." While the original movie was only released recently in 2004, it has already become a staple and has been considered a classic to millennials and to Gen Z. In fact, the original movie has become so iconic that it was eventually adapted into a Broadway musical, Mean Girls the Musical, that premiered at the August Wilson Theater in New York in early 2018. With the success of the Broadway musical, this eventually led to the creator of Mean Girls, Tina Fey, to pursue making the Broadway musical into a new Mean Girls remake, but this time as a movie musical based on the Broadway musical. I have to admit, my standards were already somewhat low, considering it had already been revealed to the world that several of the songs from the original Broadway musical were being cut from the movie. While the original Broadway soundtrack was a bit poppy, it still had that wonderful Broadway touch that worked so well for it. This new soundtrack, however, was nothing but pop. The instrumentals were lackluster at best, and the songs in this soundtrack are a big example of the makers of this movie trying to appeal to a more modern, non-musical loving audience. It all feels too simplified, and some of the singing is just not there. Carson Gregory, a Bellarmine student, found herself let down by the soundtrack. It is incredibly dull, as the instruments are severely toned down to create a poppy, generic sound. Lots of the vocals fall flat, are unenthusiastic, and required up-downs, which implies the range was not there to fulfill the songs as they were written. Bellarmine sophomore Kat Carter felt strongly that many movie viewers likely didn't anticipate a new soundtrack at all. They tried to hide the fact that it was a musical, and it took out good aspects of the songs. Why were Damien's songs cut? Why were there so many things changed? It was almost a fearful approach with a ton of autotune and GarageBand. Katie Fiducia, a Bellarmine junior, said she believes that the music producers and actors took sleeping pills before going into the studio. So to conclude, it sounds like this newest Mean Girls movie and soundtrack has become a bit controversial. Would I recommend listening to it? I'm honestly not sure. And I would argue that it's especially dangerous to look into if you have already listened to the Mean Girls on Broadway soundtrack, which apparently has gone up in listens and views since the new soundtrack came out. It's up to you either way, and if you form some opinions on it, there are always some theater kids in Wyatt Hall that surely will be ready to discuss it with you.